نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم اما بعد اعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله اموات بل احياء ولكن لا تشعرون صدق الله مولانا العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الامين الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين ان الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفينا ومولانا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم صلى الله على النبي الأمي وعليه صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا حبيبي يا رسول الله شاہ است حسین بادشاہ است حسین دین است حسین دین پناہ است حسین سرداد نداد دست در دست یزید حقا کے بنا لا الہ است حسین۔ ناظرین کرام السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ تعالی وبرکاتہ۔ اس سے قبل ہم نے جو محرم شریف کے سلسلے میں ہماری 10 روزہ لیکچر سیریز ہے جو آپ کی خدمت میں مسجد القباء 5 سینٹر شیئر کی جانب سے پیش کی جاتی ہے یہ سیریز، اور اس کے ساتھ اس سلسلے میں تعاون کیا ہے ہمارے ساتھ جماعت اہل سنت نوٹنگم نے۔ اس سیریز کے سلسلے میں ہم پچھلے لیکچرز میں ہم نے آپ کی خدمت میں فضائل اہل بیت اور پھر الگ الگ شخصیات کے فضائل و مناقب آپ کی خدمت میں پیش کیے، اور اس کے ساتھ ساتھ شہادت کا مفہوم اور امام حسین رضی اللہ عنہ کی شہادت کی جو خصوصیات ہیں وہ آپ کی خدمت میں پیش کی ہیں۔ آج سے انشاءاللہ العزیز ہم واقعات شہادت اور وہ تاریخ جو ہسٹری آف کربلا ہے اور جو ڈیولپمنٹ ہوئی ہے جس کے نتیجے میں ان دی اینڈ 10 محرم الحرام کو امام حسین رضی اللہ عنہ کی کربلا کے مقام پر شہادت ہوئی، ان واقعات پر ہم نظر ڈالیں گے تاکہ آپ کو ترتیب کے ساتھ اس تاریخ کا بھی علم ہو اور اس سلسلے میں جو ڈیولپمنٹ ہوئی اس کا علم ہو، اس کے اسباب کا آپ کو علم ہو، اور اس میں جو جن لوگوں نے جو کردار ادا کیا اس کی ہمیں معلومات ہوں، اور پھر اس طرح ہم انشاءاللہ العزیز اس جو موسٹ ٹریجک ایونٹ ہے اس کے اینڈ تک ہم پہنچیں گے، اس کا تذکرہ مکمل کریں گے تاکہ ہمیں بات پورے طریقے سے سمجھ آئے، اور اس میں ٹوورڈز دی اینڈ ہم عقائد کی جانب بھی توجہ دیں گے، اور اس سلسلے میں جو ہمارا عقیدہ ہے جو درست نظریات ہیں اس کو بھی ہم آپ کی خدمت میں پیش کریں گے تاکہ آئے روز جو مختلف قسم کے افکار سامنے آتے ہیں ان سے اس سلسلے میں ہمیں یہ پتہ ہونا چاہیے کہ صحیح فکر درست عقیدہ کیا ہے۔ Now, starting today from the events of Karbala and the historical background which led to the most tragic event in the human history, which is the martyrdom of Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu at the sand of Karbala. We need to know the background of that tragic incident and the circumstances which led to this very sad story. It is very important to know the history and to have that basic knowledge at least to an extent where no one can mislead us or no one can confuse us. We all know that the light of Deen of Islam appeared with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi Kareem alayhi salam is Khatam al-Nabiyyin, and our Qaid al-Alam sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought this final message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the humanity. After Nabi Kareem alayhi salam left this dunya, Khulafa took over, and among them are most famous Khulafa who we know as rightly guided Khulafa, al-Khulafa al-Rashidun, rightly guided Khulafa. And among them first is Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, then Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, and then Hazrat Usman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu, then Sayyidina Aliul Murtada Karramallahu Ta'ala Wajhahul Kareem. These are the 4 rightly guided Khulafa, and after them Sayyidina Imam Hassan took over for 6 months, and their time period is also included in the time period of Khilafat Rashida. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had pointed to these circumstances, and Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam before time told the Ummah that al-Khalafatu fi ummati 30 sanatan thumma malakun ba'da dhalik. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that after me Khilafat will be only for 30 years, and thereafter there will be Malukiyat, there will be Malaks, there will be kingship will start after that. But the Khilafat means where the state affairs are run by the laws of Islam, and that will be only 30 years, and thereafter there will be kingship, and there will be kings coming, and there will be autocracy rather. In another hadith, Nabi Kareem ﷺ said, Al-Khalafatu ba'di 30 sanatan thumma takuna malakan. That after me, the Khilafat will be 30 years, and then there will be Mulukiyat, there will be autocracy, and these hadiths are mentioned in the collections of hadiths like Mishkat, Fathul Bari, and these all books of hadiths, we find these hadiths. Now, when we count the time period of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then we see that according to the news which Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave to us in advance, according to that, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu ruled for 2 years, 3 months and 10 days. That was the ruling time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, 2 years, 3 months and 10 days. Then Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu anhu took over, and they ruled for 10 years, 6 months and 4 days. After that, it was the time of Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who ruled for 11 years, 11 months and 28 days. So nearly 11, you can say 12. 11 years, 11 months and 28 is nearly 2 days less, is 12 years. Then Sayyidina Ali Karramallahu Ta'ala Wajhahul Kareem took over the Khilafah of Muslimin, and they ruled for 4 years and 9 months. And then 21st Ramadan, 40 after Hijrah, Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu left this dunya. Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu was martyred on 21st Ramadan. Few days before, they were injured in the Masjid al-Kufa, but Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu, when they passed away, it was 21st Ramadan and 40 after Hijrah. Now after Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu, the eldest son of Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu, Imam Hassan, and grandson of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, took over. Imam Hassan radiyallahu anhu took over, and they ruled for only 6 months. Because when Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu took over, and Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu was Khalifa, in their time, in their ruling period, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah also announced a parallel government in Damashq in Syria, and they made Damashq as capital. In Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah was ruling from Damashq in Syria, and Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu then took the capital from Medina to Kufa, which was more central to rule and control and to look after the Islamic kingdom. So Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu was the first who moved the capital from Madinatul Munawwara to Kufa. Before him, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu, all of them, they ruled from Madinatul Munawwara. But the circumstances in the time of Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu were different, because on one side Hazrat Amir Muawiyah had declared his own government, and he was ruling from Damascus in Syria, and on the other side there were disturbance in the various parts of the Muslim territory. Therefore, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu thought it best to move the capital from Madinatul Munawwara to Kufa. And in Kufa, the very famous masjid, Jami Masjid Kufa, is very famous because in those times Khulafa used to even lead the daily prayer themselves. They used to give Jummah khutbah themselves, and they used to announce any particular ordinance or rule from the masjid. So therefore, the masjid in Kufa, when they were in Medina Sharif, obviously Masjid Nabawi was the center, and Khulafa used to lead Jummah and prayers themselves in Masjid Nabawi. But when Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu moved the capital to Kufa, there is a big, massive masjid is known as Jami Masjid Kufa. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu used to then issue the rulings and used to issue the orders to the governors, and all state affairs were run from that place. Behind that masjid, there was a, you can call it the place for Amir, where there is Darul Khilafa, and behind that was the house Mubarak of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now the point I was explaining to you is that the capital of Muslim Khilafat was moved from Medina to Iraq, in Kufa, city of Kufa in Iraq. It was in the time period of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now if you look at the Khilafat or government between Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu and Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, then Ummat Muslimah is unanimously agreed that the Khilafat was for Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. That was their right, and he was the rightly guided Khalifa, and their Khilafat is counted in Khilafat Rashida, but not the Khilafat of Sayyidina Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. That was not the full Khilafat in, you can say, in one side of the country, mostly Syria. Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah was ruling. The step which Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu took, this their decision and step, according to the Aimma of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, this was an error of judgment, they call it. They call it khata, al-khata, al-ijtihadi. So whatever they thought and whatever the decision they took is a judgmental error. But Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu carried on, and they ruled the Khilafah of Muslimin. But the time of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was a time of disturbance, because there was a strong portion which Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah was ruling, and in that time period there was a battle of Jamal and battle of Siffin. A lot of Muslims was martyred, and Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu's time period mostly went into establishing peace and calming down the people throughout the Khilafah. Now it has another history also, because the difference was on the matter that Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was, when he was martyred, then the demand was that those who killed Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu, they must be brought to justice. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu wanted to establish peace first, and then find out those people and take them to justice. But the other people, those who were demanding that those perpetrators and those who killed Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu, they must be brought to justice first, and all the things later on. So due to this many differences of opinion, these circumstances were not so calm and cool. and the turmoil continued through the time period of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. But the Khilafat al-Rashida then came to an end with the Wisal of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, and the total end with the Wisal of when Sayyidina Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu left in favor of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Now Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu ruled for 6 months, and then they withdrew in favor of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah insisted that he wanted to become the Amir for the entire Muslim state, and then Sayyidina Hassan radiallahu anhu didn't want to have that same kind of division which carried on in the time of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. And then after consultation with his close companions and with Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu then gave up. He withdrew in favor of Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. But there was an agreement made. There was agreement between Sayyidina Imam Hassan and Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and there were some conditions due to which Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu and then resigned from the Khilafah and left everything for Hazrat Amir Muawiyah. Among those conditions, one of the condition was, there were obviously the group of conditions, one of the important condition was that Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu resigns in favor of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, and Hazrat Amir Muawiyah will rule after that the entire Khilafah. But in the end, when Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu leaves this dunya, then the Khilafah will come back to Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu. This was one of the conditions, that Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah can have it exclusively. But after Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, the Khilafat will come back to the Amarat, the leadership of Muslim Ummah will come back to Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu, who was the elder grandson of Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu wa taslim. So, including other conditions, on this particular condition and agreement, Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu gave up, and Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah then was ruling. But it so happened that this I am talking of 41 after Hijrah. This is the 41 after Hijrah. Almost 6 months Sayyidina Imam Hassan ruled, and then they resigned. So it was 41 after Hijrah. Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu took over, and the conditions which was agreed between the two, they were met and they were respected. But it so happened that in Rabiul Awwal, Safar or Rabiul Awwal, Hazrat Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu left this dunya in 49 after Hijrah. It was 49th year after Hijrah when Hazrat Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu left this dunya. 29th of Safar, 49 year after Hijrah, at the age of 47, Hazrat Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu left this dunya. So Hazrat Imam Hassan was no more after 49 Hijrah. 29 Safar, 49 is the day of demise of Hazrat Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu at the age of 47. Now, had Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu been alive when Hazrat Amir Muawiyah passed away, then according to their agreement, the Khilafat would have come back to Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu. But that's not only that, we'll come to the circumstances later, we'll come to that point. But the history I'm explaining you and the circumstances under which Sayyidina Imam Hassan resigned these are the circumstances. And if you remember the hadith which I quoted to you in my previous lecture, is that Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu said about Sayyidina Hassan radiyallahu anhu. Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu said that due to this son, my son will make reconciliation between the two groups of ummah. This son will make reconciliation between the two groups of the ummah, or due to this son, the reconciliation will take place between the two groups of the ummah, whichever way you put it. So this sulh بين طائفتان في उम्मत मुस्लिमा, उम्मत मुस्लिमा के दरमियान जो दो ग्रुप थे, इनके दरमियान सुलह जो थी वो हज़रत इमाम हसन रदी अल्लाह अन्हु के तफ़ैल हुई, उनके सबब और उनके वसीले से हुई. So this also was predicted by Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa barak wa sallama, that Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu will be the cause of the source of reconciliation between the two groups of ummah. Now, and that materialized, that practically happened when Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu resigned and Hazrat Amir Muawiyah carried on with the Khilafat. And Sayyidina Imam Hassan did not want to continue this dispute and two-party state where half of the ummah is with Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu, even much more than half, but the rest of the people are with Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and then this tussle continues as it continued in the time period of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, when Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah also had declared their own state in Syria and in the surrounding areas. So Hazrat Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu thought best to resign and to have peace in the ummah, so that Muslim ummah can live with peace and can save themselves from clashes and disputes and quarrels and fights where Muslims' blood was losing. So Hazrat Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu made a very, very wise decision. But with the resign of Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu, the Khilafat al-Rashida actually ends there. After Sayyidina Imam Hassan ruled of 6th month and then gave up. Now, at the end of this first Hijrah century, which is from 99 to 101, 99 after Hijrah, 99, 100 and 101. That time, at that time, the Amir al-Mu'mineen was Hazrat Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And their time period was also very, very peaceful and time of peace and justice. Now the history later on, they counted that time as the time of Khulafa Rashidin. It was nearly 3 years, but that time, because of the ruling standard, because of the justice, peace and the way human rights were delivered and human rights were observed, the history and the ulama after that, ulama Ummat Islamiyah, they counted those 3 years also in the Khilafat Rashida. But that is Khilafat Rashida because Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiyallahu anhu ruled in his time period according to the Sharia and according to the pattern of Khulafa Rashidin. But if you look at the real time period which Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu had predicted, that ends by the resign of Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu, and with their resign, that 30 years of Khilafah which Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu had predicted, that completed. So after that it was autocracy and one man ruling. So that then continued in the whole time of Banu Umayyah. Then after that Banu Abbas, after 132, if you take the whole time period of Banu Umayyah started from Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu already onwards. So until 132, the Banu Umayyad family ruled, and then Abbasid dynasty starts. Abbasid took over, but Khilafat Rashida was not restored again. Beside that time period in between of Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiyallahu anhu. That was 99 years after Hijrah till 101 after Hijrah. Now, this is clear and this makes sense. I hope that I succeeded in making you understand how the Khilafat Rashida ended and who took over after that. That was Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu. And then the circumstances, other circumstances. Now, as I mentioned to you that Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiyallahu anhu had passed away in 49 after Hijrah. Now, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu passed away in Rajab 60 after Hijrah. Rajab, in the month of Rajab. And it was month of Rajab and year 60 after Hijrah. Now, when Hazrat Amir Muawiyah passed away, as I said, if Hazrat Imam Hassan was alive, then according to that agreement between Imam Hassan and Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, the Khilafat was the right of Imam Hassan radiyallahu anhu, as they had agreed, and it was going back to them. But Sayyidina Imam Hassan had passed away long before, almost 11 years before that. 10, 11 years. Now, if you look at the circumstances then, the logic will say that yes, Hazrat Imam Hassan had passed away. Logic will say that the Khilafah then should have been returned to the best among the Ummat Muslimah. And the best among the Ummah that time was Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, being the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and last person in the family. Last person means last male member, and the senior in Ahlul Bayt, and qualified from any aspect, any angle you look at it, the most deserving and most qualified person among the Muslim Ummah for this Khilafah, for this Amarat, was Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. But the leadership of Muslims was not handed over to Hazrat Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu. Hazrat Amir Muawiyah in his own time, he leveled the ground for his son Yazid, so that when Hazrat Amir Muawiyah leaves the dunya, then he sent the governors and people around to get the opinion and get the favor and support for his son Yazid. As I said, that the agreement was not materialized, which was made between Imam Hassan radiyallahu anhu and Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, because one party of that agreement, who was Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiyallahu anhu, was not in this dunya, which does not automatically mean that this Khilafat must change to Malukiyat and it become a kingship and the inheritance. It should have been left to the general opinion of the public. So it is always it has been always a rule in Islam as well. So the Khalifa is the one who has asabiyya, who has the highest support of the majority in the Ummah. That's what we thought. That is what the ulama in the Ummat Muslimah think, and that is what is logically also suitable and correct. But it did not happen. Now that time, 60 year of Hijrah, was quite a difficult time, in the sense that things have changed a lot. And the standard which Khulafa Rashidun had met and set, that was not there anymore. And Nabi Kareem ﷺ had actually predicted about that time period as well. And Nabi Kareem ﷺ indicated how the things will be. And the Sahaba, those who knew about the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were concerned and they were worried as well. This hadith is a very famous hadith and is reported by Hazrat Abu Huraira radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. That Hazrat Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu used to pass by the bazaar sometime, or used to sit among the people, and he used to relate this hadith to them. He used to narrate that. He said that Nabi Kareem alayhi salam said that halaku hadhihi al-umma ala yadi ughalamata min Quraysh. So Nabi Kareem alayhi salam had said that the destruction of this ummah will be at the hands of the boys of Quraysh. Ughalma and Ghulama, Ughalma, Sufaha, these are the words being used in hadith. So means the inexperienced youths, inexperienced people, those who are youth, have no experience, no wisdom to run the Khilafah of the state. So they will bring this ummah to destruction. And Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu had that knowledge. He knew more or less when is that going to happen. Therefore, Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu used to make this dua. A'udhu billahi min ra'si sittin wa amarati sibiyan. He used to make dua, O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the 60th Hijrah and from the ruling of kids. Sibiyan, Sibi, Sabib, child, kid. So Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu ये दुआ किया करते थे कि या अल्लाह मैं 60 हिजरी के इख्तिताम और 9 उम्र लोगों की क़यादत से तेरी पनाह मांगता हूँ. तो सैयदना अबू हुरैरा रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु को समहाउ उनके नॉलेज में था. ये कैसे था अल्लाह बेहतर जानता है, इसलिए कि उन्होंने नबी करीम अलैहिस्सलाम के साथ वक्त गुजारा था, आका अलैहिस्सलाम की हदीस सुनी थी, उन पेशन गोइयों का उनको इल्म था और उनको जमा करके वो ये कंक्लूजन निकाल सकते थे जो उन्होंने निकाला कि जब 60 साल मुकम्मल होंगे तो फिर जो फसाद उम्मत में बरपा होगा उसके नतीजे में उम्मत हलाकत का शिकार होगी, और वो पनाह मांगा करते थे. एक दूसरी रवायत में है कि हज़रत अबू हुरैरा रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु बाज़ार से गुजरते हुए ये दुआ किया करते थे, अल्लाहुम्मा ला तुदरिकनी सनत सित्तीन वला इमारत सिबियान. ओ अल्लाह, I should not see the end of 60 Hijrah, nor should I see the children ruling the Muslim Ummah. So when Hazrat Amir Muawiyah left this dunya, then after that you can see it was the bunch of children, and especially his son, who was a very careless person and not fit to be the leader of Muslims at all. He took over, and what happened, that's all in front of us now. But if you look at the hadith, this is not one hadith, this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported in many books of hadith. You take Al-Bukhari, Mustadrak al-Hakam, Al-Mujam al-Saghir, and Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Sahih ibn Hibban, and At-Tarikh al-Kabir. So that hadith is found in those books. Nabi Kareem ﷺ said, Halaku ummati ala yade ghilmatin min Quraysh. Nabi Kareem ﷺ said that destruction of my ummah will be at the hands of careless youth of Quraysh. Banu Umayyah is also a branch of Quraysh, is a sub-tribe of Quraysh. So Nabi Kareem ﷺ said that they will be from Quraysh, and they will be careless children or youth at their hands. This ummah will go through a difficult time and go through destruction. In another hadith, Nabi Kareem ﷺ said, Inna fasada ummati ala yade ghaylamati sufaha. That due to the inexperience and kind of those people who not only have a lack of wisdom, but no wisdom, no sense, they'll be fasad, and disputes and destruction of my ummah due to the careless and senseless youth who will not have any experience to run the Muslim Khilafah. So, in light of that hadith, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu knew, and Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu used to make dua, but nobody could stop that to happen. Aqā alayhi salatu had predicted what was going to happen. And in another hadith, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu reports that Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu said, "Wailun lil Arab min sharri qad iqtarab ala ras sittin tasiru al amanatu ghanima wa sadaqatu gharama wa shahadatu bil ma'rifa wal hakam bil hawa." Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu said that there is destruction for the Arabs because of what is going to happen at the end of 60 years after Hijrah, when the amana, the trust, will be treated as bounty, and zakat will be treated as fine, and people will give evidence looking at the person, and people will decide on the basis of their personal liking and disliking, and not on the basis of justice. So that will be situation at the end of 60 years after Hijrah. Hazrat Umm Salma radiallahu anhu reports that Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam said, "Yuqtal Hussain ibn Ali ala ras sittin min muhajarati." Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam said, this is reported by Ummul Mu'mineen, Hazrat Umm Salma, that my grandson, my beloved grandson, will be martyred at the end of 60 years after Hijrah. And there are other hadiths also giving the same meaning. But what I am saying is that when Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu left this dunya, Rajab 60. And by the way, Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, who used to make this dua that Allah Ta'ala save me seeing the end of 60 years after Hijrah and then the ruling period of those kids. It so happened that with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu used to make this dua. They left this dunya before the end of 60 years after Hijrah, and they actually did not see the beginning of 61. And beginning of 61, not only the beginning, but end of 60 Hijrah, that fasad had started. As soon as Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah left this dunya, the fasad started. So you can say that Rajab, after Rajab is Shaban, Ramadan, Shawwal, Zulqada, Zulhijjah, so 5 months. So even the second half of 60 after Hijrah was that time period when there was fasad. So Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu had passed away, and the dua which he made, that was accepted, and he saved himself from witnessing the end of 60 years after Hijrah. Saved himself means his dua was accepted, Allah Ta'ala saved him. But not everybody could leave the dunya before 60, before the end of 60 and the beginning of 61. But that prediction from those great people shows that there was a great fitna going to take place, and that great fitna, or rather call it greatest fitna, was the fasad of Yazid and the way Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu was martyred at the land of Karbala. As I mentioned that Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu passed away in Rajab 60 years after Hijrah. It so happened that as soon as Amir Muawiyah left this dunya, Yazid took over. And Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, before leaving this dunya, he had leveled the opinion of people in favor of Yazid. And he had sent people in his time to different regions of Muslim state to discuss with people and to inform them that Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah is appointing his son Yazid as Amir for the Muslim public. Khilafat had finished long time before. Amarat had left as Nabi Kareem ﷺ predicted and clearly said. So Hazrat Amir Muawiyah was also Amir, and then his son Yazid. So Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah, in his time, he was concerned, and then instead of leaving the Khilafah to the general opinion of Muslim public, he then nominated Yazid as his successor. So he did the nomination. So he actually told the Ummah that when he leaves the dunya, who will succeed him. Then the people, those who were in favor of Yazid, and those governors who followed and obeyed Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, they had that canvassing done, and when Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah left this dunya, this iqtidar, this position, call it power. I will not call it a khilafat, because no way Yazid was qualified and able to become Khalifa. There was no such thing at all. We are not using the word Khalifa for him at all. We're just trying to find a word which suits his very disturbing time period. So he's a autocrat and a rather forced leader upon the Muslim Ummah. But if you look at the sequence in the history, then Hazrat Amir Muawiyah had asked people and the governors to show their support for Yazid. Now Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, when he passed away, then after that the question was who should become the Amir for Muslim Ummah. There were many people, those who were able, qualified, experienced, deserving, and the right people for this position. And there were many, not one. Among them, the great personality were Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, the son of Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu, Hazrat Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, and Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zubair radiyallahu anhu. There were others as well, but these three personalities were the most prominent. And Yazid knew from the day one that he is not qualified to become the leader of the Muslims. He perhaps was not qualified to become a third-class shepherd, less alone the leader for the Muslim Ummah. He knew his weakness and inability and not being eligible from any sense to be the leader of the Muslim Ummah. He knew that. And he had that fear, and he was coward. So what he did is that when Amir Muawiyah passed away, he quickly sent the message to Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar, Hazrat Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, and Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zubair radiyallahu anhu, that these people should vote for Yazid and accept him as leader for the Muslim Ummah. So he was afraid that if any one of them gets up and they say, we deserve to become the leader for the Muslims, and we are worthy and eligible and qualified to lead the Ummah and take this Ummah forward and look after the Muslim state, the world will accept, because they are qualified. They deserve. And Muslim Ummah will have a unanimous agreement on their rule. So fearing that, Yazid then wrote to them. And he took over from his father, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, who had appointed him his successor. So best thing would have been to leave, as I said many times, that to leave this matter to the Muslim Ummah to decide, and on the basis of majority, then Muslim Ummah could decide who is the most qualified person among the Muslim Ummah to rule the Muslims, but it was not left. So it was then passed on to his son, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah passed on to his son, and son then wrote to these personalities that they must vote for Yazid, and he wanted his government to be strong and firm. So therefore he wanted to eradicate any kind of opposition or any kind of danger and fear he had. So therefore, when Hazrat Amir Muawiyah passed away, he wrote a letter, and he sent that letter to the governor of Medina, who was Walid bin Aqaba. Walid bin Aqaba was the governor for Medina, and he then wrote to him and informed him that Hazrat Amir Muawiyah has passed away, and then he has become the ruler. And then he sent this letter with the following order. He said, "Amma ba'd fakhuz Husaynan wa Abdullah ibn Umar wa Abdullah ibn Zubair bil bay' akhdan shadida laysat fihi rukhsatun hatta yubayyu." So look at the attitude and the writing of Yazid, the way he writes and shows his attitude and his power and his aggression on these personalities, very aggressive behavior. And he said that Amir Muawiyah has passed away, and now you approach Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, and Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zubair, those who were in Medina Sharif. And he says, you ask them that they must vote for me, and you do not spare them until they vote for me. So it means at any cost, you must get their vote for me. So that's what he meant, and that's what he expected, and that's what he wanted to put pressure, so that he can show pressure and show them that he is very determined and there is no other way but to show support for Yazid. And therefore he wrote this kind of letter to the governor of Medina, Walid bin Aqaba, and there in this letter his attitude reflects. Walid consulted his deputy, and who was Marwan bin Hakam. So Walid was a respectful person to the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was the person who had love and respect for Ahlul Bayt. But he was very, very worried about Yazid's this order, and it was very difficult for him to get what Yazid wanted. But he knew the other side of the coin also, that if he fails to get that support, then it will be very, very bad and dangerous for him. So he then called his deputy Marwan ibn Hakam, and he consulted him. Marwan ibn Hakam was a very harsh person and very rude person. He said to Walid ibn Aqaba that my opinion is that you must call these people to the governor house and ask them they must vote for Yazid, and if they refuse, then you kill them all. That harsh, that rough that person was, and rude, and very, very a person of very bad behavior, Marwan ibn Hakam. So that was his advice to his senior Walid ibn Aqaba. He said that if you don't do that, then when they receive the news about Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, then all three of them, they can claim in their own territories that they are the Khalifas and the governors, and then it will be very difficult to control the situation. So therefore it's better to be strong, assertive, and force them to vote for Yazid. If they don't, then martyr them all. So that's how the autocrats behave, and that's how matters are dealt with in an autocracy and the Malukiyat. So that attitude of Malukiyat one can see already in Marwan ibn Hakam and others. Walid then sent the message to Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu and Abdullah ibn Zubair, and the messenger went to both of them, and both of them they were found in Masjid al-Nabi. They were sitting there at the time. When the messenger came, they then thought that this is the time normally when Walid ibn Aqaba doesn't see public, doesn't see them at all. This is a time when he doesn't attend people. So his private time. So he just takes rest and he doesn't attend people. If he asks for us, then the matter is something special. Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu said to Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zubair that I think Hazrat Amir Muawiyah has passed away. Therefore he asked us, and he wants us to vote for him before news breaks about the death of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar was not found there, but these two, the messenger met and said to them that Walid ibn Aqaba says that you must come to the governor house in Medina. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zubair said that I feel the same, that Hazrat Amir Muawiyah passed away. Now Yazid is looking for our support, and things are not looking so good. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zubair then asked Hazrat Imam Hussain that what do you think, what should we do? Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu said that I will go to the governor house with my youth, and because if I refuse, then things might turn bad, so therefore let me go and meet him and see what he says. Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu went with the group of the people who they trusted, and they said to them that I'm going inside the house, inside the governor house where Walid was there in. And he said that if I call you in, then you come in. Or if you see me raising my voice, then you must also come in, and you realize that things are not so good. And if not, then until I come back, you must not move and you stay here. You don't go away. Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu went inside, met Walid ibn Aqaba, and greeted him and sat one side. At that time, Marwan ibn Hakam, the deputy for Walid ibn Aqaba, was also sitting next to him. Walid informed Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu about the death of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah, and then he said that Yazid has asked me to ask you to vote for me. Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu expressed his condolences on the death of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah. Then Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu said that person like me does not vote for Yazid or somebody in privacy. If I show my response, then I will show in public, not in behind the closed doors. So I will think about it, and if I have to announce my decision, then I will do that in public, not in this closed room, in this governor house. So therefore, that's my response. And he then said that if you want to, then you must also invite me in public. Don't invite me in privacy. You invite me in public, and then you get my response in public. So this is something which is very important, and the public should witness, not that I decide in the behind the closed door. Marwan then said to Walid ibn Aqaba. Walid ibn Aqaba, as I said, that he was a respectful person of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said to him that if you lose this chance, you will not get it again. In front of Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, he says that you force Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu and get his support for Yazid. If you don't do that, then you will lose him, and you will not get this opportunity again. There will be too much bloodshed after that. So therefore you control the situation now. And if Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu doesn't obey you, then you kill him. That's what Marwan ibn Hakam says in front of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu stood up, and they said to him, you are a cursed person, means you are a cruel person rather. Whether you will kill me or not, that is another matter, but you are a liar and you are a mean person. So Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu told him in his face to Marwan ibn Hakam. He said that, and Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu came back to their place. After Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu returned, Marwan then said to Walid that you did not listen me, you will not find this time again. So look at that, how assertive they were and how they had planned to assassinate the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at any cost, whether in Medina, in the city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or elsewhere. So it means they had planned this before, and they were going to implement their plan. Walid ibn Aqaba said to him that if I get the whole world and the wealth is in the world, I will not accept your consultation, what you are telling me. Walid ibn Aqaba said that if I get everything what is in the world, I will not accept and then assassinate the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and stand on the day of judgment and be accountable for what I do. He said, I will not do that. So he said, Walid ibn Aqaba, the governor of Medina, refused that. So that was the point where Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu received the news that Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is no more there, and at the same time he received the message from Yazid that Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Zubair and Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu must vote for Yazid. Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu received the message. They went to the golden house. They gave their viewpoint to Walid ibn Aqaba and told him that if that is the case, then that offer should be made to me in public, and then you must receive my response in public. I cannot make this kind of important decision behind closed doors. And then Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu got up from there and came home. Now next what they did was they planned to leave Medina and go to Makkah al-Mukarramah, which inshallah will continue with this with the rest of the events which took place after that in our tomorrow's lecture, inshallah al-Aziz. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah ta'ala grants us tawfiq and hidayah and ni'mah of love to the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah ta'ala grants us tawfiq to differentiate between right and wrong, and to follow what is right and to reject what is wrong, and follow those people who were right and who were the true leaders of the Muslim Ummah, and to reject those who were oppressors, unjust, incapable and corrupt. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah ta'ala keeps us in the group of the true people, in the group of the right people, and in the group of those who loved Allah, His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and respected the family of Nabi Kareem alayhi salatu wa taslim. अहबाब इंशाअल्लाह जो बाकी के वाक़यात उनको हम कल कंटिन्यू रखेंगे। याद दिलाता चलूँ आपको कि हज़रत इमाम हुसैन रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु और आपके शुहदा साथियों और अहले बैत अत्हार रिदवानुल्लाह ताला अलैहिम अजमाइन के लिए फ़ातिह शरीफ का एहतमाम कीजिए, नवाफ़िल का एहतमाम कीजिए, और जो तजवीज़ मैंने आपके सामने रखी है कि शुहदाए करबला के लिए पानी का इंतज़ाम कीजिए। आप पानी का हैंड पंप लगवा सकते हैं, उससे बड़ा वेल लगवा सकते हैं, ट्यूबवेल हो या डिगा वेल हो या कोई चीज़ हो, लेकिन पानी का एहतमाम कीजिए। सदका जारिया है और हमारी तरफ से ये तोहफ़ा होगा खानवादा रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के लिए, और कुछ बैद नहीं है कि अल्लाह ताला करम फरमाए और इन शुहदाए करबला की बरकतों से आज हम जो उनकी रूह के इसाले सवाब के लिए पानी के तौर पर सदका जारिया का एहतमाम करें। अल्लाह ताला कल हमें इमाम हुसैन रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु के नाना नबी करीम रऊफ़ुर रहीम ताजदार दो आलम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के दस्ते अक़दस से अल्लाह ताला हमें कौसर के जाम नसीब फरमाए, और क़यामत के दिन जहाँ कोई साया कोई पानी नहीं होगा, नबी करीम अलैहिस्सलाम के दस्ते अक़दस से हमें कौसर का जाम नसीब हो जाए और हमारी बिगड़ी बन जाए। हम अल्लाह से यही तौफ़ीक चाहते हैं कि अल्लाह ताला हमें अहले बैत से मोहब्बत करने वालों में रखे, और जो करप्ट ज़ालिम जाबिर नाइंसाफ़ लोग थे जिन्होंने इस दुनिया को जुल्म से भर दिया, अल्लाह उनके शर से और उनके रास्तों पर चलने वालों के शर से अल्लाह हमें महफूज़ व मामून फरमाए। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि व सल्लिम अला सय्यिदिना व मौलाना मुहम्मदिन नबील उम्मी व अला आलिहि व सहबिहि व बारिक व सल्लिम। अल्लाहुम्मा रब्बना तक़ब्बल मिन्ना इन्नका अंतस समीउल अलीम व तुब अलैना या मौलाना इन्नका अंतत तव्वाबुर रहीम। اللهم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم ربنا أنت ولينا في الدنيا والآخرة توفنا مسلمين والحقنا بالصالحين يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث لا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين واصلح لنا أمورنا كلها ونفوض أمورنا إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. وصلى الله تعالى على حبيبه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم